Welcome to Let's Talk Period, brought to you by Red Diamond Sisters. We're here to help you turn your cycle into strength with real talk, expert tips, and stories that remind you your period isn't a problem, your period is your power.
Welcome to Let's Talk Period. I'm one of your hosts, Melanie Hudson.
And I'm Jill Richardson, the second host.
And today we're honored and excited to have with us Courtney Bramstedt. Courtney is the Education and Training Supervisor for Planned Parenthood of Orange and San Bernardino counties in California. We're going to talk about Planned Parenthood's puberty and menstruation education. Welcome, Courtney. We're so grateful to have you here.
So excited. Thank you so much. Let's just start this interview by giving us a little bit of background. How long have you worked for Planned Parenthood and how did you get involved with it?
Yeah, well, first, thank you both so much for having me. I'm really excited about the conversation we're going to have today. Like they said, my name is Courtney. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm an education and training supervisor with Planned Parenthood of Orange and San Bernardino counties based in Southern California. And I've worked at Planned Parenthood for 7 years now within our community education and outreach department. So this is a team at Planned Parenthood that provides education out in the community, in school settings, with community-based groups, with families, parents, professionals, youth. And a lot of people don't necessarily know about this part of the work that Planned Parenthood does, but Planned Parenthood is actually the largest sex ed provider in the country, and that is work that our community education and outreach team does. And yeah, like I said, I've been really honored to do this work for 7 years in various different roles. And I kind of got here by accident. So like a lot of people listening and in the community, I didn't really receive that much education around sexual and reproductive health, around puberty or things like that. When I was a young person, we technically had health education, but it wasn't really that helpful. And in adulthood, I worked in a youth program where they needed someone to teach sex ed. And that was assigned to me. And I panicked. I thought I was going to lose my job because I didn't really know that much about these topics and felt some feelings about that, right? I felt a lot of shame. I was like, oh, I knew I should have known this. But while it was uncomfortable at first, through time, I felt so passionate about these topics because I could see how transformative they were for the young people and the families I was working with. And then for myself too, I noticed myself become so much more confident by just better understanding my own body. And so I decided I only wanted to live in this world of sexual and reproductive health education. And so I pursued a role at Planned Parenthood, and it's been a great experience the whole way through.
My God, that's fantastic.
Fantastic.
How did you educate yourself to teach reproductive education?
Oh gosh. One, and this is really sounds like a corny plug, but it was the first place I turned was the Planned Parenthood website. It is a really, really helpful source of just answers to questions that you want put in a really clear, easy way. So I would turn to that website a lot. There's even pages for parents, for educators, for youth themselves. And so that was a really helpful resource, but it was uncomfortable at first. It was challenging. I constantly believed that the middle school girls that I was talking to about periods or about other things were going to know more than I did, even though I was twice their age. I was constantly, it took time, right? But it was really that process of kind of going outside of my comfort zone that, with time, it just became a lot easier. And I think that's really comparable to a lot of conversations around puberty, around menstruation, around periods, is that, those first conversations, whether or not we had these conversations ourselves when we were a young person, they might feel awkward, and that's really normal. And I think, I've heard so many different stories of people who even educate on these topics, but when it's their own children, it's still, they want to do it right, and they want to, do it in the right way for that young person. So I think that's a big key, is kind of accepting that it's going to be a little bit awkward maybe or a little uncomfortable, but they're so important. And the young people in our lives, whether that's our own kids or nieces or nephews, they want these conversations to happen, and that's kind of what's been shown by studies and our own experiences is that they value these conversations from school settings, from places like Planned Parenthood, and also from their own families too.
Yes, it's
Fantastic.
so interesting about conversations because if you're growing up and you don't have those conversations, that first conversation is, quite different than people who have these conversations numerous times with their parents. And I, Courtney, am like you. I'm in that same boat. I never had conversations when I was growing up. So that's really one of the things that motivates us here at Red Diamonds. So I just wanted to get back about Planned Parenthood. What are some of the, specifically about the education programs, what are some of the programs that are being taught there at Planned Parenthood?
Oh, yeah. So I kind of mentioned a little bit how we're considered the largest provider of sex education across the
Yes.
country. And that's a big cornerstone of the work Planned Parenthood does is education. So at our
Right.
affiliate, Planned Parenthood of Orange and San Bernardino counties, we actually have education programs for youth, for teens, for young adults, parents, and professionals, because we really believe in reaching the whole community and
Mm,
providing them with, age appropriate information, information that's really specifically meant for the place they're at in their life to help support these conversations, support people in accessing the care that they need with confidence. So we have presentations that we offer for middle school and high school aged youth, maybe in classroom settings like health ed classes, but also in community-based groups. We present with the foster care community within some foster care settings. We present within juvenile halls. We also have puberty education for late elementary. One thing that's really special is we have this class called Here Comes Puberty, where parent, caregiver, and their young person have this conversation together. And again, it's to help
right.
because, like we talked about, Jill, like
Right.
so many of us never had these conversations growing up. So if we're wanting to change that, we might not exactly know how to start. And it's us there helping them start that conversation so they don't have to do it alone, but then they can keep going and keep talking. And then we also have education for parents on their own, because sometimes there's topics that they might want to learn about, on their own and be able to
Mm,
ask all these different questions. We also work with professionals, which a lot of times looks like you serving professionals so that they have the information to maybe answer questions that might come up in their work or just point people in the right direction, but in a way that breaks that cycle of stigma. Because again, if we didn't have these conversations, even if a question gets asked that's really as simple as, oh, here, let me look it up for you, or I think you should talk to your doctor. If we have more confidence, it's going to show that we're comfortable, we're supportive, um, even if it's a referral or something like that. So,
mm.
yeah, lots of different programming, really aiming to reach people at all different ages and different
Amazing.
programs.
It's
Yeah.
it's across the board, really. You are touching every age and every person that is wanting that. Awesome.
What are you finding about parents? Why they need your service in the first place?
That's a really good question, especially parent programming isn't always offered at all different types of orgs, and it's something that is kind of special to us that we really do try to work with those parents or families or caregivers because caregivers can look in so many different ways, and really supporting them because, like we kind of talked about, that's a big theme is that a lot of people, they maybe didn't have this education in school when they were growing up, or maybe this just wasn't ever talked about when they were a young person, and so they don't have those scripts for how to start those conversations. So a lot of times there can be fear there and just wanting the guidance there. A lot of people they want to say things exactly right and put a
Mm,
lot of pressure on themselves to say it in the perfect way,
yeah.
and we try to give them some basic like kind of foundations, medically accurate information that they can use, but also the encouragement that really these conversations look so many different ways, and that's what is the right way, right? Is like saying it in the way that kind of fits your own relationship with your young people and treating it as a conversation versus just a one-time talk, right? Making it an
Yes.
ongoing piece. So we try to support them with that and just reaffirming that, you know, in general, it might feel a little uncomfortable because that's sometimes how society views these topics. And it might not even look like they're listening, but they are listening. With the young people I've worked with in our leadership programming and things like that, a lot of times the ones who do have this conversation a lot or their parents talk to them a lot, they're like, oh, my mom is so embarrassing. She always wants to talk about this. But that's how you know it's working. And they know the information and they're like, I'll ask, okay, do you feel like you can talk to someone? They're like, oh, yeah, I can go talk to my mom if I have any questions. So it shows that even though they think, it's a little uncomfortable sometimes, they know that they can go to that person for help. And that's the whole goal, right?
In general, what do you teach about menstruation and how is the information shared?
So, like I shared earlier, since we present for late elementary on puberty, we present for middle school and also high school aged youth, we bring up the message of menstruation at all three of those age groups, and it's slightly modified for each age group because they're kind of coming in with a different level of understanding. Um, because we're health educators, we do kind of come from that health ed perspective. And so when we talk about menstruation in late elementary, it's a part of puberty education, which something that's super neat about that is it means that students are getting kind of holistic view of how menstruation is a part of all these other changes that their bodies are going through at this time, which I think helps make it a little bit easier to understand because that's kind of why that process starts, right? It's a part of the body changing from a child's body into a young adult body, and menstruation is part of that. So they kind of get a sense of some of the emotional changes that are happening during puberty and some of the physical changes, which do include menstruation. And then we also talk about, menstrual like care products that people might use. So we go over the different types of products people might use, such as pads, tampons. We also kind of loosely introduce people to some of the sustainable products that exist, like menstrual cups or period underwear. We talk about what they can expect on a period, so how long periods might last. We give ranges, right, and really emphasize the fact that everyone's bodies are really unique, and so no two people's experience is necessarily the same. We talk also about how, especially during puberty, menstruation, the body's figuring this process out, right? So it is very common when someone's going through puberty for maybe they get a period and then they don't get another period again for 2 months. And we talk about how that's really common, always encouraging people to talk to the adults in their lives and their healthcare providers, but that is really normal. And it's because the body is kind of figuring out this new process that it's learning. And we also talk about a little bit of the anatomy. So they understand from that like physiological level, what's actually happening inside the body. Because the period is just one part of what we see, but there's all of these other processes that the body is doing behind the scenes that we don't necessarily see, which helps them to just better understand what's actually going on. It's not like it's this random thing that just comes about once a month. There's a whole process that's going on. So that's one thing that's really neat. Sometimes when we educate late elementary, we educate maybe just girls on their own or just boys on their own. But a lot of the times we have everyone together, which something that's super cool about that is that means that all the students, like we've kind of talked about, get the chance to learn about menstruation. And even when we separate, we still do briefly touch on menstruation, even if it's, for example, like a boy only group, just so they have that understanding. And then in middle school, we talk about kind of similar things. We'll talk about anatomy in a little bit more detail in middle school. We also talk about, things they can expect from a period, different symptoms that people might feel sometimes. And we also start to address some of the social elements, like, just being supportive of one another. And we have some scenario-based work that help them scenario role play around like why it's important not to tease one another or those kinds of things, because that can sometimes show up for people, unfortunately, and we want to bring that conversation to the forefront so people one, understand what's going on, but two, understand like the social elements of like we're all going through puberty together. It's not okay to tease one another, that kind of piece. And then in high school, we talk about menstruation during our anatomy lesson. And yeah, again, at that point, they're really able to more clearly click like how the body works and also periods. And we found that for a lot of young people, that's really empowering information because, um, if our body's just doing this thing and we don't get why, that can feel really confusing. But it can help to see how amazing it is that this is a thing that even happens when they kind of understand what menstruation is. And it also helps them understand other topics that we talk about, like pregnancy and whatnot. If they understand how that menstrual cycle is all a part of that. So those are some of the different pieces. I know I went into a lot of detail, but I think it's really neat to repeat that lesson at lots of different age groups, really reminding them of some of those core aspects because they might forget, right? And then also teaching everyone is super important because people might have siblings who are getting periods, people might have classmates that are having periods, and so it just helps for everyone to have that common knowledge so we can all support each other, just understand a really cool thing that bodies can do.
We're trying to make menstruation upbeat, and Red Diamond Sisters is all about period positivity and making it sound exciting. But how do girls, young, especially the young girls in like elementary school, early elementary school, because I'm sure you're teaching younger and younger ages, because from what I understand, the ages of menstruation is starting at an earlier and earlier age. How do they respond when you tell them what they are, what they can expect?
That's a good question. So right now, mostly we work with late elementary, but we are working on having more offerings for early elementary because, like you mentioned, periods are happening earlier, but also these conversations are things that can be incorporated at earlier times in just, slightly adapted ways. But a lot of times when we're working with people who maybe haven't had their period yet, or maybe it's like a mixed group and some have and some haven't, there's just so many questions. And sometimes there's some fear there too, right? And I mean, it makes sense. It sounds a little scary, like bleeding, when people get a cut. Um, that's, not something that could be scary, right? People learn to associate blood with that. But, they have questions about how they're gonna take care of it. What if there's a leak? What if they're at school? Like every scenario. So they're really trying to think through, and we'll answer those questions. But one big message we try to, remind them of too is that, um, this is a normal process, and like
Mm,
people around you can help you, and like
absolutely.
it's
Yeah.
okay. Like, if we have an accident and um, we learn for next time, right? Maybe we'll keep an extra pair of underwear and a pad in our backpack just in case, or an extra pair of shorts in our locker, or things like that, to kind of help them feel also from the emotional side of it. Like, you got this, right? This is
Yeah.
something everyone experiences. And in general, like, people manage, and you have all these people who can kind of help you and support you. Like, look, all of you are in this class together, right? If you need help, you can help your friend, right? And just support everyone. And one thing we really do a lot too is we do a lot of co-ed or education with everyone together, and that's
Mm,
something that also is so important because it can help break that stigma, and then people know what their classmates are experiencing, or it's not something people just have to experience on their own. So we also teach the boys about periods and menstruation and what that is, just to kind of normalize it. Because again, if we're trying to just make it a normal body experience and just something, yeah, like you said, amazing that our body can do this. Like, that is
yeah.
so amazing that our body just does this on its own. Also, we have to teach, everyone about it. So
Yeah.
that's something really cool that we do too.
And it seems like, parents, when you're talking about it, it's almost like you're opening their world to that as well. Do you find a lot of them, are for the first time having this kind of support to talk about their period? Planned Parenthood is really giving that kind of openness about it, share with us about what some of the surprising moments that parents are feeling from your perspective.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's pretty similar to what you talked about. A lot of times people are sharing that, oh, they learned something new, right? That they're learning things, even when it's a class that's maybe with a parent and a child together, they're still finding, oh, wow, I took something new away from this and I learned something that I didn't know. And then also, a lot of people do get the chance then to open up with the young person in their life about maybe what their experience was like when they first got their period or when they
Yeah.
started to go through puberty, which is really powerful. A lot of people, I don't think I've really ever had those conversations with my own parents. And I'm in this work just because of some of the discomfort that exists there. And so it's a really powerful experience for a young person to get to hear from, this caregiver, a parent about what their experience was like and really see like this is something a lot of people go through, right? About half the population has periods. That means we've all had a first period at some point. And just to kind of, break that stigma and normalize and also help people realize that just like other things in life, that first time or the first few times of menstruating, there might be some lessons learned, but eventually we'll learn it and we're gonna, be able to navigate it. And there's people who have gone through this before and are going through this potentially still, and they can support us with it. So that's a big takeaway. Yeah, just sharing things that maybe they wouldn't have otherwise had the opportunity to open up, and hopefully that creates, and we find it does, that foundation that then they can keep having those conversations
Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
throughout that child's life.
So what is the most surprising aspect of the job for you?
It's not surprising per se, but one of my favorite things that I love is like you would think again, like we talked about, these conversations are happening more and more, but these needs still exist, right? So that can be surprising. And I love those moments where we can, help give someone a piece of information that like helps them feel more confident with themselves. I love those pieces. It's not really necessarily surprising in the traditional way, but it's something that really like makes me so happy and definitely keeps me so passionate about this work is really seeing the impact, right? Whether it's we have, you know, outreach tables out at community resource fairs and people who come up and are just happy to tell us a story about how they got their IUD from Planned Parenthood and that was the best experience, or whether it's a young person who has questions and then they let us know later that we were someone they felt like they could go to for their questions and they felt supported by us. Those are definitely the pieces that really um, you know, hit. And especially there's so many different places to get information nowadays, right? With people have a whole world of things on their phone in their pocket, right? And
Right.
places they can search, but young people still need those people they can talk to, and they still want to go to people for help and support. So I think that's one thing that again, it's kind of a surprise in a way, but also more so just brings me joy that like our team is always coming back with these success stories of experiences where they were able to support people, whether it's just at a community outreach event or in a classroom or whatnot.
I bet you're
That's
amazing with
awesome.
everyone. Just feel I feel your passion for this work, and you would be just the most wonderful teacher for children, all
Oh,
children, boys and girls. I tell you, you're remarkable. You really are. You bring a really
Yeah.
good energy to this whole subject, and you make it exciting. You don't make it intimidating or heavy. It seems like, okay, this is fun, like normal, and this is life, and let's have fun. So,
aw,
yeah.
thank you so much. Well, thank you for uplifting these conversations because that is so important. And I think I definitely represent our whole team. They all are so well trained and love working with young people and are really great at, again, adapting that message to fit kind of the age group they're working with and the setting they're working with. They have so many really awesome programs that we didn't even get the chance to fully cover.
Yeah.
So thank you for that compliment. And thank you for the work y'all are doing to uplift these conversations because it's so important and we can't hear these messages enough. We need them from all different types of places.
Yeah, thank you. I have to say that I used Planned Parenthood when I was a
Yeah.
teenager, and to your point, you have been around for a long time and truly have I felt like just lifted so many people up with just empowerment and being a support system. So
Mhm.
I really see it seems like we are moving forward just because more and more people are aware that the periods are just normal, it's natural, and we really, the more we could talk about it, the better we all become from it. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Just before we close, tell us how someone could go about to if they wanted to join a parent group, or if their kids wanted to get involved with something even after school. Do you have how would they get a hold of that? What is the process about getting a hold of Planned Parenthood?
On our website, betterthansexed.org, you can learn all about the different types of education programs we offer. We even have some support materials on there as well, with good resources and places people can go to learn more. People can also email us at education@pposbc.org as well. Don't hesitate to reach out, and we're happy to kind of support in whatever ways we can with whether it's puberty conversations that include conversations around period or menstruation, or conversations on healthy relationships or things like that, for youth of different ages. And yeah, thank you both again for having me and uplifting this conversation. We this is what we do, and we're here to kind of support people with it because, like you said, we can't talk about it enough. The more conversations, the better when it comes to all of these topics.
Absolutely.
Well,
Well,
yeah.
thank you so much, Courtney. And let's just all have more period empowerment.
This is great. You have helped us feel empowered, Courtney. Thank you for your
truly have.
enthusiasm,
Thank you
for
so
all the
much.
work you do. And I also used Planned Parenthood when I was in college and beyond. So it's an organization we both believe in, well, like millions and millions and millions of people.
Absolutely.
We all believe in you, and we're so
Thank you.
grateful for the work you do.
Yes.
Thank you very, very much.
Yeah.
And thank you everyone for joining us on Let's Talk Period. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.